Hello and welcome to another episode of Studio Tech Live. This is episode number 102, recorded on the 3rd of September 2013. And this is actually the first of 2 live shows that we are doing this week, but more about the other show in a few minutes. Now, we're going to be doing our normal monthly Q&A this week. It's the first Tuesday of the month, and that's the day on which we answer questions or attempt to answer questions from either from the chat room, from our IRC chat room, or that have been sent in. And normally we cover a few other things, and we've got a few bits and pieces to cover at the start, a few little bits of news items, and of course we're looking forward to IBC. But before we go any further, we need to thank the companies who kindly support Studio Tech Live, and that is NewTek, Teradek and BitGravity.
BitGravity provides the bandwidth for all the TTFN TV live streams. We continue to receive very positive comments on the quality of the live video, and this combined with outstanding service and support makes BitGravity a great company to work with. So if you're looking for someone to help with your live streaming requirements, check BitGravity out at www.bitgravity.com.
And our thanks to BitGravity for providing the bandwidth for Studio Tech Live. And Vance, good to see you. How are you? How are you doing this week?
Oh, I'm here. So another challenging week, but I'm here. Hope you guys are doing well, and we'll see how everything goes with the Q&A today. So. All
right. Now you have. You've been changing a few bits of equipment, and maybe we'll get onto that later in the show. Now we are joined, but as always, by the man behind the glass, the man behind the screens, the man who presses the buttons, the man who hasn't got his shot in preview yet. So I assume he's going to do a hot punch. Peter, thanks for joining.
We do indeed have a hot punch, and also the man who's tweaking the sound and failing to switch on his microphone, as usual. But as always, it is a great pleasure to be here.
And thanks for joining, Peter. And we've had fun setting up. Every week, we tweak things and we're changing things, not only because we actually quite enjoy doing that, but also so we can share our various experiences with you. And I think we'll probably be doing some of that during this show. Now we have a few items of news that we're going to cover first. And the first of those is IBC. IBC is now only about 10 days away, something like that. And we're going to be there and covering it. We're not exactly sure who's going to be there and doing what. But we're doing our sponsorship, or we're being sponsored for our IBC coverage. It was our friends at NewTek and Atomos, and somewhere we have a lower third that actually talks about this, and I'm sure it will appear momentarily. There we go, on the screen. And so we'd like to thank Atomos and NewTek for their support of our coverage. And we're probably not going to be doing any live coverage, though that might change. We'll just be providing a series of videos afterwards of all the latest things that we have seen that we think you will find of interest. So we'll keep you updated. Follow us on Twitter if you're not doing that. Best way to find out what's happening is to follow us on Twitter at TTFNTV. And for those of you who are going to IBC, and I know a lot of you are, we will be having a meetup probably on the Friday evening, but that is yet to be confirmed. But we know that we need to do that in the next few days. So as soon as we have that confirmed, we'll be tweeting that out. So IBC, it should be exciting. I think it's going to be a pretty exciting year at IBC. Normally it runs sort of, second to NAB. Don't get a lot of announcements, but from what we hear, I think it's going to be an interesting show.
So this week, Mark mentioned a little bit ago that today is one of 2 live episodes. And in a couple of days, on the 5th of September, Studio Tech Live will be broadcasting a special edition. And you see it there on the lower third this Thursday, 5 September, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the U.S., 1300 UK, and 1400 CET. Now, this is a special show. Sometimes we get the opportunity to do these shows pre NAB, pre IBC, and it's always exciting to get some information. And when we have these special shows, it's a great tune in. If you can't catch it live at these times, 8 a.m., 1300, 1400, please tune in to studiotech.tv, and you can catch the rerun throughout the day. We'll need a couple of hours to get the turnaround, and you can see exactly what we're going to be going over with in a couple of days. So pretty exciting stuff. So please tune in.
Indeed, and yes, look at studiotech.tv or live.ttfn.tv and look at the stream. We'll be running it for the rest of that day. Then, of course, it will be available on video on demand after that. Now, another item of interest is from Garmin. Garmin make GPSs, but I haven't really had much to do with Garmin for quite a few years. But they have, in the last couple of weeks, launched a couple of video cameras, which is interesting for a GPS-based company. And here they are on my laptop. They're introducing the VIRB and the VIRB Elite. And if we go and look at them, you can see that it's a 1080p HD action camera with Wi-Fi and, of course, GPS. I think they are really focusing on the GPS aspect, saying it's highly sensitive. It's got an accelerometer and barometric altimeter, 3 hours at 1080p, and it's rugged, durable, and waterproof. And they also say it talks about an aerodynamic design. So I guess if you're going skydiving or something like that, it'd be of interest to you. 1.4-inch chroma display. So it looks like it might be quite interesting. It does have some external sensors in it, and they're saying how easy it is to use. It's not shipping yet. It is going to be available in the fourth quarter. So another action camera. So this is following on, following up the GoPro mold of action cameras. It looks to be quite a little bit bigger than the GoPro. It does include a monitor, which the GoPro doesn't. You have to get a separate back for it. But GoPros are incredibly popular. So obviously Garmin are trying to get in on that marketplace. So we look forward to seeing that at some point in the future.
So also, just a few days ago this past week, Atomos released a new firmware update for one of the products that we just showed you about a week and a half ago, and that is the Samurai Blade firmware update. Now, this update is version 5.03, and it adds a lot of neat things. Now, one thing that we love at Studio Tech Live, is a lot of dancing LEDs, a lot of visual reporting back to everyone so that you can see what's going on. We talk about the DB90 that we have in the studio that has lights that shows all across the front. So Atomos has changed the audio level meters on the Samurai Blade. I don't know if Peter has that on the website he can pull up, but instead of the small audio meters, they give you a few options, and they go much larger and more predominant. Now, for someone like myself who has trouble pressing the record button on the video camera and watching to see if you've got audio going in and the video's recording, anything that you can do to make your indicators larger is a good thing, I think. So I think we're taking a look right now at some of the larger meters right this minute. So there you go. That's the latest update from Atomos. So if you have a Samurai Blade, there's a number of other things that are done, but the display, audio settings, some audio delay, some other kind of neat stuff is in 5.03. available for download for all registered users. So please check it out from Atomos, Mark. So that's pretty exciting. Looks like you've already done your firmware update on the Samurai Blade.
And I love that update. I mean, previously when you were trying to monitor the audio, they were vertical meters, probably about quarter of an inch high, about 6 millimeters, something like that. I mean, you could see that they were moving, but it wasn't very accurate. So now having that longer meter in the bottom left corner really does make a difference. So I did it straight away as soon as I heard about that update, and I've already been playing around with it and very much like it. So well done to Atomos for doing that. Now, last week on the show, we looked at the Sony Anycast Touch, the AWS 750 in Sony terminology, and I hadn't had much of a chance to play with it, but over the last week I have had a chance to play with it. I have put it through its paces, also coupled it up with a PTZ camera, and being able to control the PTZ camera from the unit. And the unit's got a lot of pluses, a few things that I think need to be addressed, but this was a pre-production version, so you would expect a few things maybe not to work, or not to be finalized. But if you look at Studio Tech episode number 92, and I have it on the laptop here in front of me, you can see that we have done an episode of Studio Tech all about the Anycast Touch. It's pretty comprehensive, about 37 minutes, really taking you through the whole operation of the unit. There were a few things we didn't cover, but most of it is in there. So if you're interested in the Anycast Touch, do check out our Studio Tech episode number 92.
So also recently, YouTube, our friends at YouTube, are doing some content identification with Content ID. So, we talked a little bit back a few months ago about our test with YouTube Live and how there was some latency or delay in some of the live streaming. Now, we do real-time chat room monitoring, and we try to get things as close to zero latency as we can. And sometimes we're running a little bit of latency. Smallest amount, the better. But YouTube live streaming doing something very interesting. If you, just like on YouTube, if you try to upload something that is copyright protected, the gremlins there at Google and YouTube are actually going to be monitoring that content. So if you do try to stream something live that is copyrighted, you will get a warning initially. But there's a possibility that your stream could be demerited or marked. So better be careful about any of that stuff when you're doing live streaming on YouTube, because they do have the Content ID now in place. It was announced originally on the 22nd of this past month, and it's yet to be seen how well it's working. But if it's anything like you upload a regular video, everyone be careful. Content ID on YouTube live streaming.
Indeed, there have already been some reports of people's live streams being cut. And a lot of it isn't necessarily it's your content. You have to be careful. If there's background music that's playing and you have an open mic, that counts, and there is no discrimination. And you can apply to be whitelisted. Apparently, there is a process for that. So if you were streaming a concert and the band obviously gave you and their record company and et cetera, gave you permission, you can apply to be whitelisted. But even that has been suffering a few problems. But I guess it is early days. So as Vance says, you have been warned, and it's something that you need to be careful of, and especially for ambient, and background music, which might not be in your control. But if it's on your stream, then you could suffer the consequences. Right, last week I asked for some volunteers to test, to do a beta test on our Roku app, which is in development, and I've had some people have sent in emails, so thank you for that. We're not quite at the stage of beta testing yet. We have had a version up and running, but we think we're going to get another developer to look at it and take it a stage further. So we'll be hopefully in the next couple of weeks be getting back to you. And if you are watching on Roku, or you want to watch on a Roku, you have a Roku device, then you can just send me an email at mark@tfntv.com, ttfn.tv, and we will add you to the private channel that we're going to be using for our beta. We have had somebody watch last week on our initial version, and I think they quite enjoyed the experience of just being able to sit back and watch it on their television without having to do anything particularly special. So it is something that we want to do, and we'll be getting that beta out in the next few weeks.
So it's now time to thank one of our sponsors, and that is Teradek. So we will be using some of the Teradek products next week at IBC. So we encourage everyone to tune in and watch some of the products in use. Now we'll be taking a VidU, at least one VidU with us. I don't think we'll need more than one, but we will be using that in some test applications, and possibly maybe even doing some live streaming. You have to keep an eye out. Depends on our bandwidth, but we did use it at NAB. Worked very well on a wired connection, and we may try it on a 4G dongle and see how things work. So we would like to thank Teradek for the support of Studio Tech Live, and also we will be bringing you more information live from the Teradek stand in just about a week or so. Well, just over a week. So like Mark said, about 9 to 10 days. So please check out Teradek if you need any kind of video equipment linking together, either to the internet or to other locations, latency free like the Bolt, instantaneous. Please check out Teradek.com, and thanks again for their support.
Yeah, indeed. And we have thanks to one of our viewers, John in the Netherlands, we are getting some 4G support in the Netherlands. We just have to, until we get there and find out how many thousands of people are trying to use the same 4G cell tower, we really don't know how we're going to be able to stream. But if we can, we will. And Teradek are hoping to get us one of their other new products to try as well. So fingers crossed on that. So as Vance says, our thanks to Teradek. All right, it is Q&A time. And in fact, one of our viewers sent in, this is James from rcracing.tv. And so RC is for radio control. And I've done a lot of radio control things over the years. And he sent in some questions which we'll get to, but he also I asked him to send in some photos of what they do. So basically, what they do is they go to various meetings around, mainly in Europe. I think there are some in the US as well. And he shared a few photos with us. We've got one here. And this is just of the setup. They are using Wirecast on a MacBook Pro. From memory, they're using a Panasonic AC130, I think, and then a couple of consumer camcorders. And we just cycle through the pictures, Peter. There's, they have these little, tracks for. This is obviously radio control racing cars, and they go. There they have their setup. Obviously, somewhere nice and warm for that one. They've been to some quite exotic places for this. And they interview all the greats of RC racing. And is that it? We have one more, and there we are, one more picture from them. So so thanks to James for sharing those. He also looked at his website because with my interest in radio control. So here is the rcracing.net website. And there is, if you're ever into radio control models, it really is quite interesting. Now, this unfortunately was bad news for me because here they talk about a new quadcopter. Viewers will know that I have been talking about getting a quadcopter for a while. But here there's this new model. It literally is shipping almost any day now. And it is known as the Blade 350. Now, what's really quite interesting about this is that it comes with a GoPro camera mount with some shock absorbent built in to it, and it has these various modes that you can use for flying it, and that is looks really interesting. And the good news is it's actually quite a reasonable price. It's about £300. So that'll be $450, and for people who haven't flown them before, it has several modes, including one that puts 30 feet radius around the person controlling it, and it won't come any. It's got built-in GPS and altimeter, and it won't come any closer than that, so you can't fly it into yourself. It also has a mode where it always goes in the direction you push the controls, and it looks very interesting. So you never know, we might get one of these. So thank you, James, for making me look at spending more money. But let's go back to the questions he raised, which were actually quite interesting. So what they do is obviously they go out and they cover live events. And I'm going to read the question there. It's got a particular issue with a Blackmagic Intensity shuttle box and trying to get it work with Paralink's Arrow. Now, an Arrow is an HD link, wireless link. And they connect it to the camera, either to the Panasonic or a Canon 60D, and then to a TV output using HDMI. Then it just works with a monitor. But if they connect it to anything else, it just refuses to work. Out of all the times they've tried it, they've had it working maybe once or twice. And he's guessing that it may be the HDMI handshake between the Arrow and the shuttle as it works in other setups. What are your thoughts? And I can see Vance smiling, because as soon as we start talking about HDMI and handshaking and EDID, Vance holds up a box in his hand.
So this happens to be the DVI Doctor. There's also HDMI Doctors, but essentially you can change DVI to HDMI very easily with adapters. But he didn't say whether he had power. This is a 5-volt DC input, and this will actually allow you to record the EDID of a working display. So you would plug your display into the output, and then apply power to this and record its EDID, and then everything else from that point on after this would lock in. Like I said, this is called the DVI Doctor, but there are some of them that are made directly for HDMI without having to do the conversion. So that might be one thing. And Mark, I always have to do show and tell, so I had to bring out my RC car.
There you
go. So you always say something, so I had to bring mine out just to show it. But anyway, so that may help. EDID recorder for HDMI or DVI. So there you go.
I guess the other thing it could be, it might not be that. It might actually be the signals, whether but it's in Europe, so I think it should 50 hertz is probably. He's not got a 599460 issue, which of course we sometimes see in Europe. But he goes on to say actually later on that he is looking onto on-site video storage so that we have a local HD copy of our footage. And thanks to your shows and reviews, we're considering either the Ninja, the Samurai blade, or the blade that we showed yesterday, or the Ninja, which we have somewhere in the studio. Now, actually, they're great, and you can get cheaper, products from Blackmagic which will record uncompressed. But you do need to use SSDs with those. So even though the unit cost is less, you're paying more for SSDs. But the advantage of this is when you have problems like you're experiencing, you can get your source. Whether so for the the Ninja 2, you'd plug the HDMI cable in, and it actually tells you on the screen what your signal is. So it'll tell you whether it's 1080, 720. And quite often, one of the advantages of having one of these isn't just for its main purpose, which is as a very intelligent field recorder. It's actually to be able to check things. The number of times that I've plugged things into here when something hasn't been working to see what it's working on, and it comes up and says that it's operating on something that you didn't think it was. So first of all, they're all great products. Depending how you're going to go with your setup, if you were thinking that you might go for something like a television switcher, Blackmagic, television switcher, and use that for the main switching of your cameras, then that either has HDMI or SDI output, and then you could consider either going with a blade for SDI or a Ninja for HDMI. And that would probably be one of my recommendations for you in that sort of setup, putting something in front of Wirecast, using Wirecast for the streaming. I learnt about the value of having a monitor like this from Vance, because in the early days Vance was looking for a camera, and I think, Vance, you actually took one of your little sort of field monitors. It wasn't, I think it was pre our Atomos days, but you took one of your field monitors into the store and started plugging them in. I think you were looking for clean HDMI feeds. Was that right?
That is exactly correct, Mark. And here is, I don't know if the battery's charged up or not, but yes, it is. So here is my field monitor. And obviously there's nothing going into it right this second. But this gives me the ability to check everything from the video hub or anything in the studio with a little SDI input. I have SDI output linking through. I have HDMI in and HDMI out. So this will tell me, just like you were saying, as a number of field monitors will. Some of them only have HDMI, some of them only have SDI. This is a combo unit that allows you to do a lot of adjusting. But I found this almost a necessity for odd signals. Sometimes you get a black screen and you don't know exactly what what's going on. Just a real quick patch cable patching in to the signal, and you can tell exactly. This happens to give the frame rate and actually the video signal listed right on the top, and it tells you whether you have a valid and legal signal. And then that way, if you say, oh, I have my settings set on 1080i or 1080p, but I'm actually inputting a 720p signal, you can change that on your end, on your sync or your end product, your monitor, or whatever you're doing, and you can get that signal to work better. So I use this probably at least 3 times a week, and just love it. I just love it. The price on field monitors, they range anywhere from in the $500-600 US range to, I believe this one was about $1,500 US. That would do all of the inputs, and that was one thing that was important. I do use both HDMI and SDI on the field monitor, Mark. So I don't know how you can get by without it, to be honest with you.
I think I would have bought a field monitor if I hadn't, gone for the Samurai and now the Blade. And while this is only SDI. Most of our sources now are SDI. I do have a Ninja 2 should I need to do anything different, but it is very, very useful. So it does double. So apart from being a field recorder, so that would fix James's thing of having a film recorder, and it might also help with lots of other problems, diagnosing things while they are out doing what looks like some really fun and exciting production. By the way, I do have all their videos are on YouTube if you want to check them out. So the other question he had, which is a question that I have been pondering for a while, is that how, if you're traveling around Europe, how do you get consistent bandwidth for doing a live stream? And what he's saying here is that while sometimes they get an ADSL line and that can be good, there is no consistency. Maybe it's low bandwidth, and maybe it's non-existent, or maybe it's fine. And they're finding that they're only being able to do standard definition a lot of the time, and they're looking at what the options are. So the options are obviously you can go with, if you have good 3G 4G connectivity, you can go with either something like a video or the Bond, the Cubes from Teradek or Bond. But the problem with that across Europe, and this is something that is not yet fixed, and I think in a few years it might be fixed, is you'd end up having to have data plans for every country. So if you have a data plan in the UK and you go to France, you're going to pay the earth for data. So what it ends up is you have to buy a data plan in each country, and that really becomes cost prohibitive. And we've just actually started seeing one of the mobile operators here has just announced that in 7 countries across Europe, but not including France, which is the one I'm interested in, that if you have a plan with them, then you can use that plan as is across Europe. But that's another issue. So You can look at using those types of solution if you've got good 3G, 4G. The other option is to use satellite, and we have been trying to find out information on satellite uplinks for quite a time. And there is a service called Tooway, that's Tooway, and they offer some fairly interesting packages which are up to 20 megabits down and 6 megabits up. So 6 megabits up, you could easily get a 720 stream. For a 720 stream, and James has asked this question, you really need at least 1.5, if not 2 megabits. We've run quite a while with 1.5 megabits for a 720 stream, which works quite well. We've upped it recently. And you only want to use less than half or around half of your total uplink capacity. So if it really is a 6 up, even if it's only a 3 up, then a 1.5 should be fine. But then you've got all the problems with contention ratios, and of course contention ratios you have on normal DSL services. So that is nothing new, and it also depends on the time of day. A lot of these systems are sold to people for home broadband if they're in rural areas where they can't access fiber or ADSL of any sort, and therefore the peak times tends to be in the evening. Now if your events are during the day, you could be all right, but I guess there is no guarantee unless you pay them for a dedicated 1-to-1 contention ratio, and even that isn't too bad as long as you have somebody who's going to pay the bill for you. It's around £80 an hour for 1-to-1 contention ratio. So what's that? It's $120, $130. So as satellite links go, that is a pretty good deal, I can tell you. But obviously, if you could just take one of the packages and it would work, that would be even better. But James is on the case actually for doing satellite streaming and looking into it. So if they find out any more, they will feed back to us. And it is something that I really need to sort out my internet connection in France, because the 250k I was getting up. Every time I look at the video, I have to say though, Vance, what a good job Skype actually did on such a low bandwidth. It does show you what you can do.
It's amazing, Mark. I mean, we've used Skype for years now, and it really is amazing. It does a lot of audio negotiation. We talk about handshakes with EDID on HDMI, but Skype does a lot of handshakes as well. It does a bandwidth monitoring on both ends and says, hey, you can do this or you can't do that, and Skype just works in a lot of instances very, very well. Integrating it into switchers gets difficult unless you're using screen grabbing programs or a lot of pixie dust and different things. But Mark, we've been pretty pleased with the use of Skype. We're obviously using direct communication now, and we're using the cubes to and from, and they're working very well. And we'll see what happens in the future as far as other technologies. But Skype is just great when you've got low bandwidth. I agree 100%.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat room. Some people are saying that Tooway are good. Somebody is saying, they're saying that Sync Satellite is expensive. Well, it is, but if you've got a customer paying the bill, that's not too bad. Satellite is guaranteed bandwidth. That's right. Latency is also a problem. Well, it depends. If you're doing interviews, then latency becomes a little bit of an issue. I mean, Vance and I have this latency between us, varies between half a second to a second each way. So for a round trip, that's somewhere between a second and 2 seconds, and that at times can be frustrating, but is manageable. But if it gets anything above that, then it really isn't. Chris is asking, could see if there's a WiMAX provider in my area. In my area of France, we're lucky to have electricity and telephone service, and let alone WiMAX. But yeah, so people are saying that the Tooway system might be worth looking at.
And I'm getting some grief, Mark, about just saying that Skype works. But, everyone has to remember that Skype is still a free service. I mean, you're not paying anything for it. I mean, come on, if it was a $500 or $600 enterprise software, then yeah, we could certainly complain. And we have done our complaining about Skype. Everyone knows for the last 2 years we have complained about it left and right. But when you really get down to the facts, it does work, and it works well on varying bandwidth. So I'm not saying that it's that it's the be all end all. It certainly is not, and we have pointed out a lot of the weaknesses. But off the shelf free download software, it's really much more than what you pay for. So let me put that criteria on my comments. So pay $500 or $600 for it, £1,000 or more, $2,000, then yes, we'd really be complaining. But free, hey, sometimes you get what you pay for, and I think Skype's pretty good for free software. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and while it is such a pleasure not using it, because we have now we're using the cubes. We have much better quality. We, still, if the internet goes down or the internet has issues, I mean, we still occasionally have a problem. But the reliability of our link has been, 10 or 20 times better since we switched. I mean, it really has improved, and the quality is much better. So, looking in the chat room for other questions. So it is, Ed says, we have an ATEM 2ME, and because it doesn't have an integrated playout DVR, like a TriCaster, for example, what is the best solution, stroke cheap, stroke professional, to broadcast files and lower thirds? Well, for static lower thirds, you do have the ability in the ATEM to put lower thirds in as graphics. So you can, of course, do that. The things that we have used, we used just PCs or Macs with Media Express software from Blackmagic with a DeckLink card to output. That's one solution. Some people are using the old, and we used for a while it's around here somewhere, the old Apple TV, because it had component outputs, and you could load a file on that, and with the remote control you could actually use it as a playout device for videos. So that's one option. You can, of course, use something like a Blade or a Ninja, a Samurai, etc. Any of these field recorders also act as playback devices. But probably if you have a computer around, you can even just capture the screen and just play back using VLC or what I think VLC actually supports the DeckLink cards now. I think that the chat room might correct me on that. There are other solutions. I mean, there are you can go to people like Synergy, who have playout servers, and Tools on Air, I think, do Softron. They all have playout servers, but you're starting to get into quite expensive territory there. You mentioned cheap, but so you need to look at that. And of course, you can actually have, I think the ATEM. Does the ATEM2 have the RS422 controls for decks? Because you could always see if you can get a second-hand old broadcast of VTR and actually play back from that potentially with the remote control. And yes, PSN says that VLC does support DeckLink. Chris Watts is saying you could use vMix. You can use vMix. Or one of the things that we used to do was actually for streaming, we used to use Wirecast for streaming as a way you could use vMix for streaming. And then we'd play videos sort of back in the final part, not within the ATEM1 that we had. So you can do that. So Ed is saying we use a Mac, create a lower third on Photoshop with an alpha background, and play it as a video on one of the HDMI inputs. The playout is the problem. Well, there is a trick to. So for lower thirds, you can load them into the ATEM2. You don't need to. You can put them into the graphics store on the ATEM2, but you do have to have a. I can't remember what it was, Vance. It was something strange. You had to have a black layer in there. I think the first layer had to be black, which doesn't seem logical at all. And so it's also suggesting the Hyperdeck studios or shuttles from Blackmagic, of course, you can use for playing back files. So they're getting better at supporting other modes. At least on the studio now, you can, and I think on the Shuttle 2, but not on the Shuttle 1, you can actually play back, ProRes or Avid DNX now. You never used to be able to do. You used to have to have everything in RAW. So there are a whole range of solutions, and that is one of the problems with the ATEM switchers, Television Studio, the ATEM 1 and the ATEM 2. And it's the not necessarily getting the input, but it's syncing. It's being able to press a button and for the video to play at that exact second. That is the issue, which is where the 422 control would be handy. I can't think of anything else, Vance. You think we've covered the bases on that?
Yeah, I believe you pretty much hit all of those. There was a question we wanted to address briefly, and that was about the Ultra Studio Express, the mini recorders. And the short answer is that if you get firmware updates on these guys from Blackmagic, this is HDMI or SDI input and Thunderbolt output. And as you can see, it's smaller than the palm of my hand. A lot of these will work very well for things like Skype input. Make sure you get the latest firmware update on these guys. The Intensity Extreme works well as well. Just make sure you get the latest firmware update on it. But this will work. Now, some of the Google Hangouts we found, I know they're changing things every single day. But interestingly enough, we found that Safari works better for Google Hangouts when you're using capture cards than Chrome does, and that's kind of an odd thing, Mark. You don't use Google Chrome sometimes to do Hangouts. Maybe they've got that fixed in Chrome, but Chrome was not very friendly to capture card support, where Safari was on the Mac side. So I guess you just have to play around with it and figure it out.
All right, we're now time to thank another one of our supporters, and that is our friends at NewTek. Now, NewTek, as you know, produce, manufacture the heart of our studios. That's the TriCaster, and they'll be exhibiting at IBC. And here we have their look at their website, NewTek at IBC. They're on stand 7K11, and it says, "See what's new at IBC." So if you want to see what's new at IBC, and you're going to be going and visiting there, then do check them out at 7K11. But you might also want to watch our Studio Tech special on Thursday. You never know, it might just reveal a little something about what NewTek are going to be showing at IBC. And it is going to be pretty exciting. So do watch our special show on Thursday. As Vance mentioned earlier, that is at 8 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. CET, and we'll be running replays for the afternoon and the evening if you can't see it live, and then it'll be available for video on demand. So do check out the NewTek website, but you might want to do that from Thursday onwards. So our thanks to our friends at NewTek. All right, Vance, questions. Do we have any more? Are we going to have to talk about the changes you've been making in the studio?
Oh, well, I think there's a few. So the difference is SDI input, output. So we see those on those devices. Pretty much the drivers, Mark, we've found on the Blackmagic products. A lot of the Blackmagic products use very similar or the same drivers, so that's something to pay attention as well. So and it should work. And you say exactly like. I mean, obviously they're different devices, but yes, we have used the Ultra Studio Mini, and we've used the Ultra Studio Extreme, Intensity Extreme as input capture cards using the Thunderbolt interface, and they work as long as they have the proper firmware on the chips. They work to be, very, very similar and work just like a capture card that would be on your PCIe bus on a built computer, or say that your brand new Mac Pro, which Mark will be ordering any day now. That will be the trash can version of the Mac Pro. So his Mac Pro is getting a little updated, the 12-core one, and he'll be getting that trash can Mac Pro very, very soon, so he can answer some questions about the PCIe in that. So isn't that right, Mark?
And that'll be the silence version of the Mac Pro, will it?
Actually, the Mac Pro is pretty silent. In fact, I don't think we've ever heard the Mac Pro.
No, that's true.
This is the MacBook Pro, yes. Peter, as opposed to the Mac Pro. And in fact, Apple have an announcement next week, Tuesday. They have a called an announcement event, so who knows what will be announced? Yeah, the Ultra Studio mini recorder and the Ultra Studio, I have one over here, mini monitor. Actually work pretty well. So that could be a good way of getting SDI or HDMI, playing back using Media Express to play back files. People are saying that Apple are going to announce an iPhone next week. That does seem to be pretty likely, but what else will they announce? Some of the MacBook Pros are getting a little bit long in the tooth. Vance told me 6 months ago, don't buy a new MacBook Pro because they are about to replace it.
And now here we are 6 months later, and you can still buy one because they're going to replace it. So there you go. I was not wrong. I didn't say when they were going to replace it.
That's true.
That's correct. They're going to replace it. I promise you, they will replace it. Of course, the chat room says Mac's going to be dead in a couple of years, and Android's going to take over the world, and maybe they'll just be Arduino and Android, and who knows. Robots ruling the world, so we won't even need Mac and iPhones and Android and everything else. But yeah, I think we'll see, Mark, seriously, in the next few months, we'll see some updates to the Mac line, along with, like you said, some new iPhones. So that's good.
Well, I'm, with IBC coming up and doing video editing, I was thinking, well, maybe I should get a new MacBook Pro. Then they've got this event on Tuesday where it may or may not be MacBook Pros. But then the question is whether they'll be available immediately, so I can go and buy one to take with me on the 11th or whatever day it is I go to Amsterdam. So we will see. They're normally available just after I need them for some event rather than just before. So Vance, why don't you just take us through the saga of the audio? I think people who are regular watchers of the show will know that a while ago you had a problem with one of your PreSonus mixers. The power supply went on it. You had it changed out, and then I think was it only last week? Must have been the day after the show, you had another problem with it.
Yes, Mark. So last week I was a little out of sorts, especially in the beginning of the pre-show, and I guess no one knew that for 3.5 hours or so I was changing settings around from one PreSonus to another one, and yeah, I don't know if I've just had bad luck with electronic equipment in the last, 6-8 months. Maybe just had bad luck all the way around. But so a few hours, I guess maybe 16, 18 hours before the show last week, one of the PreSonuses, which had already been replaced, been worked on once, sent back to them, and then also replaced by PreSonus, all of the preamps went out. Completely, all of them. Now, mind you that the PreSonus always lives on a 2,000, volt amp, 1,500 watt here in the U.S. at 110 volt UPS power supply. That is a pretty nice one. It's a 4 deep cycle battery setup, and I think that the AC power is certainly protected. I do live a little ways out from the city in the country, so we get some transient spikes occasionally, brownouts, which I can't stand when the power drops down and then pops back up. It seems to happen a lot, but this was more of a maybe capacitor issues or preamps just dying out. But yeah, I had an extended warranty on it, which was great through the local supply house, and I took it back in after the show last week and said, look, I need to ship this thing off. They were going to give me a loaner, And I had already done everything for my second PreSonus, moved all the 16 settings from the 1 through 16 to the 16 through 32 board, flipped all those back over and tried to get those all set for last week. And when I went into the supply house, the Pro Audio section, the Pro Audio manager, who knows me well, he just kind of shook his head, and he said, "We've seen a lot of these," and that's that kind of just gave me a little bit of reserve. So I ended up striking a deal and trading them both in, and just changing them out to something that looks like this. So, Mark, there you have it. That is the new Behringer X32. And I got a little bit too much light over in this area over here, but you can see it's just in my arm shot. Has inputs on this side of the board, outputs on this side of the board, and everything is selectable with selection switches with motorized faders. Now, these are pretty nice, and Mark, you're familiar with what PreSonus calls a fat channel, but essentially every single one of these banks of inputs can run through processing, and that processing on this board is done up in this area, right here, up in the top left. So you have things like your 48 volts is up here. I know you can't see that because I haven't zoomed in. Your gain control is that top knob right up here. You got the gate and the duct here, so you can adjust that. And everything shows up back over here on this display. It's not a touchscreen display, but everything is changed by just pressing a couple of buttons, and you can see that the display changes, so you can see things going on right here on the side. So all of the outputs are also motorized, and Mark, there's I did some research on this. So like I said earlier in pre-show, Mike Myers is one of our viewers, and Mike visited about 3 weeks ago or so. He had a family reunion very close by, and he said, "Hey, do you mind if I come by and see your studio set up and talk to you for a little while?" And I said, "Sure, come on by." And so he came by, and I showed him PreSonuses, and he said, I picked up an X32, and I really, really love it. It's got great sound. And so I started doing a little bit of research on it right in this quick time of the PreSonus going out again, and found out that Midas is a brand now that is owned by a conglomerate along with Behringer, and Midas has been making preamps and audio soundboards for many, many, many years. And I think the likes of Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, a lot of well-known bands use these in the studios and on tour, preamps that are designed by Midas. So the other thing that I found really nice was this Pro Audio Store, their preference in all of the audio boards that they could use. The X32 is the one that they chose to run the entire Pro Audio system on for all their open mic nights and everything else. The manager of the Pro Sound department said to him it was the best sounding audio board that they had at this particular facility. Now, they didn't have multi-thousand or $1 million boards, but they have some very nice high-end audio equipment. And it's the place I bought the PreSonuses from originally, and in the price range that I was looking for when I bought the first 16.4.2. That's exactly where I was led, and it was leaps and bounds above the analog boards, the Z14 that I had before the analog, and so everything's kind of a little bit of a progression. But I would be remiss to say, Mark, that I was a little bit upset last week with the failure for the third time of that audio console, and just essentially didn't really have any faith in the PreSonus brand. So it is what it is, and I made a financial decision. Nobody gave me the board, and it was all money out of pocket. But hopefully, it's a good decision. But I can tell you right now that I need a pilot's license. So, Mark, I know that you've flown in the past, so I need a little bit of help to because there's so many buttons on the silly thing that I just I get lost on what I'm doing here. So
let's keep that shot.
Seriously, it is a pro board.
Yeah, so let's keep that shot. So
okay,
on the left you've got the input. So there are 16. So they're doubled up. So that's how you get the 32. Is that right?
Right here's the 32. So you press this button and press this button. So there's the first 16. There's the second 16. 17 through 32.
And the same on the outputs.
It remembers everything, obviously, of where they were set. Same on the outputs. So you have bus 1 through 8, bus 9 through 16, and you have some groupings that you can do as well. You also have some mute groups over here in the bottom that allows you to select any of these inputs, and by pressing just one button, you can mute a whole bank of these, almost like a subgroup. So everything on this board is assignable from here through processing if necessary, and then back out. So it's it really is. It's a different sounding and feeling board than anything that I've experienced from Behringer in the past, and we'll see. We'll see.
So over on the right-hand side, just above your iPhone, there are two buttons that are flashing. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an effects. That's actually a decay. Yeah, those I just need to zero those out.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's just on one of the sets that I just need to zero out. It's just I guess the decay and some effects were on, but I'm not running through those.
Right.
But
so those
are on. But there's different scenes.
So you hit the button then, and then there are little displays above each channel strip.
Right, exactly. So, and I probably could zoom in. I don't know how well it's going to work from here because I do have this thing on kind of a, let's see if I can get it to zoom. This is not really the right remote, I don't believe. I just grabbed a remote. I don't think this is the right one. Yeah, I can't zoom in for some reason. Okay, well anyway, yes, every one of these right here are assignable. The colors can be changed in the background. So if you want to color your microphones a certain color, you can do that. You can color your Macs a certain color. You can color your PCs, or obviously in a band situation, you would do guitars and drums and et cetera, maybe different colors. So that's the different colors. They have no meaning other than the way you set those up. But in each one, you can do both icons, and like I said, you can't really see it. If I get brave, Mark, and I tell you what, I will take this down. So give me just a second. I will take this down and bring it right into where I can show you these. I think this is important.
Okay, here we go.
So,
live camera
right
action. Okay, that was quick.
All right.
So this is the new XA25, is it?
So yes. Yes, it is. Okay, so I'll try to keep the glare down as much as I can. It might be a little bit difficult, but
good shot.
So
yeah,
here you see the actual. You see, so you can see, that you got little smiley faces. You got microphone inputs. So I'll bot back up and I'll press this button. These will change, and then you can see that input number 1 shows Heil. Input number 2 shows Belt Pack. Number 3 is showing the Cube. Mac Mini, PCs, et cetera. So, but there again, these colors, you can change the fonts. You can make the fonts lower, higher, et cetera. And then, on the outputs, it's the same way. So when I change to the outputs, it says, okay, 1 is a mixed bus, front, et cetera. And, and here's left, right, left, right, out. So, that's kind of the deal there. Now I'll jump down a little bit and I'll try to keep the glare off. But so there's your gain and 48 volts, your threshold. Each time you press one of these buttons, Mark, it says view. Then if you see right over here on the side, it changes to exactly what that gate setting is on the display. So anytime I press a view button, like this one I just did lit up,
right,
then the display changes. So now I'm back at home and it tells me, what's going on with the Heil. So anyway, that's kind of, you have bus sends that you can set up. Sorry for all the movement there. Stereo mono bus. And of course we have a light that you can have on, and monitors and talkback, and all different types of things. You got an iPhone, actually an iPhone pad where your iPhone can sit. Now, one of the things, Mark, that's also pretty neat. I'm going to switch back over here and see if I can do something else real quick. And this is one of the pluses. We talked about on the PreSonus a lot that how easy it was to control via an iPad. So here's an iPad control, and this is their X-Control software, X32 software, and you can see that a lot of the stuff is right here on. You can do a lot of different stuff with the iPad. It's instant control. You can change your scenes. You got meter. You can do recording where it's going. You can just do all
record
types
to
of
cassette.
stuff.
That's good.
Where it's routed. Yeah, where it's routed or routed, depending on where you're from. It tells you how you can take 1 through 8, 9 through 16, 17 through 24, et cetera, what's going to your monitor, and of course you can set it up to where how all of the settings are. So a lot of this is sorry, moving all around here. I need a steady cam because I am just sitting here with the XA25 just jumping around. But I guess it's yet to be seen if the audio console is going to be super high quality. The very first thing that everyone thinks of when you say Behringer is it's not the top of the line type stuff. But I can tell you this X32 has been well thought out, if not so complex that someone who's not an audio engineer like me, I may have to fly Rob Ashard here to help me. But I'll certainly, it's challenging. So it does work differently. It's a little bit different setup than the PreSonus. It took us a little while to get our heads wrapped around the PreSonus. And some people that are accustomed to the audio world, they don't like the PreSonus and the way it does digital routing or routing, and some like this much better. So anyway, I'm looking forward. I really, honestly, as you said, Mark, have not had much time to play around with it, so I've not gone back and set up all of the settings. One thing I do like a lot that I was really frustrated with and I let out a lot of aggression on was the way PreSonus, every time you plugged it into a FireWire connection, it would force you to upgrade the firmware if either the firmware on the board or the software on your controlling PC did not sync up. It wouldn't even let you connect. And it was very frustrating that you couldn't download your scenes or your data before you had to do the firmware. It would just pop up and everything would be grayed out. You couldn't control it. I know you remember and see it. You've seen it before. And unless you had a valid scene backup, it was very difficult you could just wipe a board out. And I did it enough times. I just wanted to throw something out of the window from the second story. And so I got really, really frustrated, but also got good setting it up manually as well. On this particular board, as soon as you plug in or you connect to it via the network, because it does have its own static IP address that you can log in the network, you can download that information directly to the PC or Mac. So that's good. I haven't had a chance to play with it much, Mark, but we will see how that comes out in the near future.
Well, I thought the PreSonus was.
You can also delay every single channel.
Yeah, that's what Ed is saying. Ed, by the way, said he told you how good the Behringer X32 was a while ago, and we didn't get back to him, and now you've got one. But the fact you can put a delay on every channel and output is pretty good, right? Get rid of all those sharks.
Right.
Get rid of all the sharks.
Right, exactly.
Well, I look forward to hearing how you get on with it. I think it is going to be a bit of a learning curve, and but we're still pretty pleased with the PreSonus here. It has worked well for us, and fingers crossed. I did notice that at least in Europe, the PreSonus prices have all just come down quite dramatically. So whether they are doing a clear out and they're about to announce new models, perhaps with improved power supplies, who knows? I've got a 5-year warranty on mine, so I think I've still got 3.5 years to go. So I don't think
that's exactly what the plan is.
Yeah.
There's a new version coming out, Mark. I got that information as well, but
Right.
I was given the option to wait until the new version came out and do some kind of an upgrade to that, and I just I should have listened to Ed a year ago. Ed, I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't listen to you, but once you spend that kind of money, you would hope that everything would work well, but I just couldn't make it happen. So.
Yeah, it's not a cheap board.
Well, I have to say, as the chief button pusher here for Studio Tech Live, I have got used to the PreSonus. I do wonder with the Behringer just how long it would take to get used to the different setup. So familiarity is a good thing. This means that next week when I walk in, Mark will have the X32 for me to learn half an hour before show starts. But hey, nothing new. I like a challenge.
Oh, he knows me far too well. Well, Vance, thanks for sharing with that. We are, of course, as always. It says looking at his watch, but he hasn't got on. We are, as always, past our hours. I have enjoyed it this week. I hope you have found it useful, answering a few questions and talking about various things and looking at the new Behringer X32 that Vance is now learning how to use in the US studio. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, that's fantastic, but please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Studio Tech TV, and please follow us on Twitter at TTFN TV. It's especially important as we're over IBC. If we're doing anything special or we hear exciting news at IBC, we will let people know on Twitter first. So, Peter, thanks very much for being here and pressing the buttons again this week.
Pleasure as always, Mark.
And in fact, Peter and I are spending a lot of time with each other this week because we have an incredibly busy week. Not all of it is to do with Exciting Thursday, but some of it is. So hopefully you'll join us again on Thursday, or if you're watching this video on demand and it's past the 5th of September, check out our Studio Tech special recorded on the 5th of September. So Vance, thanks very much indeed. A pleasure as always.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. And I look forward to next week, this week in a few days, and next week as well. So everyone stay tuned in for all the exciting stuff from IBC next week. So glad I could be here.
Right, thank you very much. And next week we're hoping to have talk about a new interesting live streaming service, a CDN, sort of a pay-as-you-go service, which might be of interest to quite a few viewers. Anyway, that's it for this month's Q&A. Thanks for watching, and we'll hope you'll come back and watch another episode of Studio Tech or Studio Tech Live soon. Bye for now.